Year, Chicago. We are coming to you from Studio C at AM 560 The Answer. And this is the IRS Radio Hour.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This show is sponsored by the Law Office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC, and OPM Tax Resolutions.
God bless you, OPM Tax Resolution.
Okay, Happy New Year, Jim. OPM helps people achieve full financial recovery. We help people with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, IRS collections, unfiled tax returns, and payroll tax issues. We also help people with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other debt-related issues. So if you have a New Year resolution to solve your IRS problems, today's the day to do it. Give them a call at 312-664-6649. Again, that number is 312-664-6649. You can visit them on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. I want to welcome our technical producer, Debbie Schreiner.
Hey there. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you, Debbie. And then I want to introduce... But Jimmy's not here. Okay, all the biggies are gone this week. Okay, Rush Limbaugh took a couple weeks off. Sean Hannity's not there. Who else was it that was?
Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh is gone.
Now Jimmy Leahy isn't there.
So Jimmy Leahy isn't here either. But we have a capable co-host here, and his name is Jake Leahy.
I've got a proposal. I'm the leading voice in America.
Yes, and for everybody, if your holiday season couldn't get any better, you have 2 weeks of me with no Jimmy again.
That was good.
And this is the IRS Radio Hour. As always, we will not just talk about the IRS, we'll talk about sports, politics, family, the Great Pumpkin, or anything else. Anything else we decide to speak of.
We always talk about America.
We do talk about
Chicago,
America.
And a lot, and you know, the
Rahm Emanuel's vacation to Cuba.
Who he came back. I don't know if you saw that, but he came back on early. He's probably mad. How dare you interfere with my family time? If you're going to kill people, kill them when I'm home. I'm here. I'm not on vacation.
The nerve of some people.
I know. It's amazing to me. I remember a couple of weeks before when he was talking to some reporter, and they leaked out that he was going to Cuba, and he belittled
it was a private conversation.
Yeah, with the mayor of Chicago. I'm a reporter.
Why would this reporter go out and tell people what I told him?
And all he said was in a casual way, you're going to Cuba. Oh, how dare you tell people what's going on? That's me and my family. How dare you? It reminds me of when he came out and someone asked him a question. Well, why did you hide it for 13 months? Hey, I'm in the middle of a heartfelt apology here. How dare you ask me these questions? And then they never answered the question. Then that's their technique. That's his technique, is always not to answer the questions.
That's why his approval rating is 18%.
It is 18%, and I think I don't know who that's his wife and his neighbors. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to make. I'm kind of surprised though that we haven't had more protests here in Chicago after this last weekend when those two individuals were killed. The poor neighbor just standing there. Amazing to me. And then also in this week we had the Cleveland Rice. Grand jury didn't return a verdict, or not a verdict, but they didn't indict the police officer. And this is a lot that has to do with training, okay? Because I was listening to some police experts. They say, okay, what they should have done, they should have stopped about 70 feet away from the kid and then asked him to drop his weapon. Kind of the same thing happened with the kid here, the 16-year-old here in Chicago. If he would have stayed, if he was farther away from him, then he wouldn't feel threatened. Now I know he just came out and he pled not guilty, and everybody's up in arms with that. How dare he? How dare he try to defend himself on it? He just roll over, go to prison, and keep his mouth shut. But of course he's going to say I'm not guilty, just like in Cleveland. They said that cop should have just rolled over and gone to prison. Of course they don't want to just go to prison. I
think it's so easy for people to comment after the fact that a police officer made the wrong choice, and I think sometimes they do. We're all human. We make mistakes, but it's split-second decisions that they're making in very difficult situations often. And
I agree.
I think the average person doesn't understand what that's
I agree.
like.
See, and we were talking about it on the way here because he shot the guy 17 times. But remember, there was this case in New York where a guy came out. He was on the there was a couple cops out in front, and he came out on the walk, and someone said gun, and like 50 some shots were shot, or more than that were shot at the guy, and he didn't have a gun because they get their adrenaline's going. They hear a shot, they're afraid. And they're going to keep shooting until the guy's gone or they're out of bullets, and that's just what happens. Now, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, and I think this all goes back to training. If they say here, maybe in this situation you should stay back and you shouldn't drive up on the kid, and then you see the gun and then you're afraid he's going to shoot you, and so you have to kill him.
Yeah, and in that Cleveland case, in my own opinion, I think that nobody feels worse about that than the cop who actually shot him.
I agree with that.
Because it's clear that he was wrong, but at the time it's easy to understand
you
why.
We talked about the picture of the gun. I don't know if you saw it,
why he would
Debbie.
feel threatened. And again, in hindsight, it's obvious that he shouldn't have killed him.
I agree. And
when you put yourself in the situation, it's much more different.
I agree with that, and it is a high pressure thing, and that's, I said here in Chicago, they want the guy to just roll over and go to prison, and of course he's going to say I'm not, I didn't get out to kill the kid, I didn't want to murder the guy. And I think that's kind of a trumped up, my own opinion. I think it's kind of a trumped up charge. Murder means he got out of there wanting to kill the kid, and I don't think that's what happened. So maybe, and sometimes these prosecutors go for these higher crimes and they don't get it, and then because I think it's sensationalized rather than just going after. Hey, maybe he was negligent, but murder, I don't know. I think the guy was. I don't think he got out of the car thinking I'm going to kill this kid. So that's my own opinion. But I also wanted to talk about something else. On this show, we don't like to talk about Donald Trump too much. But I have to say, it's kind of funny to see him now turning his media skills to the Democrats. And, he used this term against, and they're saying, oh, he's sexist, he's sexist. So Hillary Clinton, remember a couple of weeks ago on this show, we talked about Hillary Clinton and that we thought that there was a staged question that she came up. Hey, you think? I think it was
a staged question.
Although I was just reading another article and they said, "Oh, this person came up and asked her this question." Remember, he asked her, "Well, you're supposed to believe rape victims, Hillary." You said, "Why don't we believe Bill's?" And she said, "Well, we should believe it until it's proven not to be true." Of course. So, but what's going on with Donald Trump now? All the sexist talk, and he's saying, "Hey, Bill Clinton's." That's fair game, and so now all the media is going, "Oh, why do you say Bill Clinton's? That's not."
It's their own personal life.
It's their personal life. And so someone said to him, you're bringing up the alleged affair with Monica Lewinsky, and he said, alleged. He admitted it.
What difference at this point does it make?
And that's what Hillary will say over and over again. Bill's loved, and I don't know.
It's in the past.
I don't know if you saw this thing about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I just love to say that word. I mean that name. Okay. I don't know if you saw it, but she came down on the mayor of San Diego because there was alleged sexual harassment. Nothing like Bill Clinton was alleged to do. Much lighter than that. And she came out and said and asked him, "Hey, you got to resign. This is just the seriousness of the charge, and you got to resign." And then Bill Clinton, they bring, "Oh, that's ridiculous. He's loved. Everybody loves him. If he ran, she just said this last week. If he ran." Again, he would be elected. I think that's far-fetched.
Bill Clinton?
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
He probably would be if he was right. My own opinion, I support for President George H.W. Bush. He still has one term to serve.
He does.
He may be 90, but it's still you got to serve that extra term.
He's still jumping out of planes. At least he was last year. I don't know if he jumped out of planes this year. Kind of reminds me of Jack LaLanne.
Better than Jeb.
Jack LaLanne used to pull the boats. Even in his 80s and 90s, he would swim with the boats behind him. I think Jack LaLanne's gone now, so he's probably not pulling the boats. And I don't know if he's jumping out of airplanes, and because that's dangerous. And it's also dangerous if you got the IRS coming after you. Okay, we've talked about this is a new year. Get your New Year's resolution and call Open Tax Resolutions at 312-664-6649. Again, that number is 312-664-6649, or visit them on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Visit us on the other side. We're going to talk about the new taxes, new laws in Chicago. So here on AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host. I am Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour right here on AM 560 The Answer. And I'm joined today by my guest co-host, my son.
Your very good friend.
My very good friend, Jake Leahy.
Yes, and this is Jake Leahy as always. Not always. Like this week, though.
So Jake pointed out that we missed the last segment. We didn't do our news roundup or review and comment on the news.
But what we do...
I wanted the music.
But what we do have for you, he likes that music, but we'll make up for it with a great blog segment.
It is a great blog segment. And this week we're going to talk about, because it's the new year, and we're going to talk about the new rules in Illinois. What happens every year in January 1st, all these new laws come into effect. Last year, I think it was 250-some new laws.
Like a budget?
That came into effect January 1st. And so a lot of times we don't even know what they're going to be. They're always passed, but people are like last year, they passed the law that they can change the speed limit on the tollway from 55, and they let them go up to 70. It took some months because it had to be passed by the tollway board also. But now that's why I just noticed a couple weeks ago on the tollway that the speed limits went up. About time. Who's going 55 on the tollway? No, I always go 60. I always go 63. Okay, 8 miles over. I'm just kidding, officer. I always go 55. But
I go 52.
Not anymore. I can't drive 55. Okay. Anyway, but I've noticed here now it's 70 or 65 in a lot of places, or 70. Now that makes sense.
So what are the new taxes?
Well, in Illinois now we have 237 new laws that take effect on January 1st, or took effect, I should say, on January 1st.
It's an increase of like 0.0001%.
Well, you're right about that, and that's kind of the rub, right? They just keep piling up. 250 some last year, 237 now this year, and in Cook County, it's even worse because we're only talking about that's only Illinois law. Now Cook County has a bunch of new stuff too, and one of those things in Illinois, 12 of them have to do with taxes and fees. So I wanted to review those, like every other
review and comment on the taxes and fees.
But like every other show, right? You got a list. We got a list. So we got to have a list too. We have a New Year's list, and the New Year. So everybody has probably heard this one, and that there's a Chicago property tax hike. And that's one reason why they did. And we just finished the amnesty that they gave. We talked about that on the show for about a month. They gave you amnesty for any tickets that you got before 2012. Doesn't make any sense, but that was part of the deal.
Two people benefited. It's a big thing.
Yeah, we'll raise the property taxes. Remember, that was when the county said, I don't know, because they only wanted to raise taxes on houses worth more than a certain amount. And they said, we can't do that. We don't have a system to that. I'm sure they could have figured it out, but they just want to tax everybody. So, that's
why tax someone? You can tax all.
Yeah, the average property tax in Chicago is going up $600. Because they're trying to raise $427 million. There's now, and on top of that tax, now when I was a kid, right, almost everything you got was free. And I'm using air quotes, okay, so you can't see it, but I'm using air quotes because nothing's free, right? They always say, you never make anything more expensive than when you make it free. But you didn't get charged in Chicago for water, for garbage. But now there's a garbage, and it's $9.50 a month for garbage pickup now, and they're going to start, and they're hoping to collect about $62 million, $63 million that way, and now they're going to start taxing Uber because of course they can't let them operate without a tax. That wouldn't be fair. So they're going to start so 50 cents a ride for every Uber. It's also going to apply to taxi cabs. And then there's this one that really irks me, and this is the Netflix or the cloud tax. I have a Lexus, and I think I talked about this on the show. I use LexisNexis, right? Lawyers don't use I just said lawyers, Jake. I don't generally call them lawyers.
Attorneys. You know you're not really a lawyer if you refer to yourself as a lawyer.
That's
not
correct.
An attorney.
So, but we don't have libraries anymore. We use LexisNexis, and it's pretty expensive. I think my bill is like $400 a month or something. But now it's $450 a month because there's a tax on it. And I remember I got it. I'm like, what is this? And it's the entertainment tax. It's not for entertainment, but they still tax me. It's actually 9% of whatever.
Just as they're taxing Netflix too.
Yeah, Netflix, and they call
Uber.
it a cloud tax. And now they're also increasing building permit fees. And they're, you know what else they're doing is they're increasing the price of a lawsuit. Now, for years, it's kind of like a postage. When I was growing up, the postage stamps were the same price forever. Now they go up they go up 3 times a year. You get it. The postage is out. Now they try to sell those stamps that are universal. So if the price goes up, you could still use it because that's the printing of the stamps is what costs all this. They have to throw them all in the garbage. So now they they have these stamps. But the same thing here with lawsuits. Lawsuits were always the same price. They never went up, but now, like every year now, they increase the price of all lawsuits, and even to file an answer or an appearance. And so when you're getting sued, for instance, if you get foreclosure cases against you, you have to pay an appearance fee, and that appearance fee keeps going up too.
It's my favorite joke. What's worth less than a penny? That same penny tomorrow.
You're a Rand Paul guy, aren't you? a fiscal joke.
A true fiscal conservative.
That's true. Would you consider yourself a fiscal conservative?
I call myself a true conservative.
Am I a true conservative?
No.
I'm not a true conservative. That's good. Both my kids are telling me I'm not conservative enough for them. And
you're not a real conservative. You're a war hawk. You're a neocon.
And I'm right. And I'm right to Attila the Hun. Okay, so I think I'm pretty conservative.
You think?
There's a new e-cigarette tax because we tax cigarettes. Why shouldn't we do e-cigarettes? Because they're not really cigarettes. Okay, but they're taxing cigarettes. $1.25 now for e-cigarette tax. Sales tax hike. Going to 10.25% that's the highest in the nation. I always say, when you open a business and you're buying and selling things, you're happy to make 10%, as a profit. The government gets 10%. They don't even do anything.
When I was in Florida, I think there was a 13% sales tax I paid at one place.
Is that right? Okay, so I thought it was the highest in the nation here, but that's higher.
Maybe it was just once. I don't know, but
they added to these other things, and they have the hotel tax hike now too.
There's also no income tax though. Remember in Florida. So.
In Chicago now, the hotel tax is 17.4%. So. Almost 20% of your bill for staying in a hotel goes to the city of Chicago. And everybody says, well, that's what's hurting the convention industry. Everything's too expensive. All the labor is too expensive. We need them to take a cut and pay. But then you're charging 20% on a hotel room. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. The ticket reseller tax. So if you resell tickets like on StubHub, and they're going to start, or these brokers, they're going to start taxing them more. So you pay a tax when you buy a ticket to the Cubs game. You pay a tax on it, and it's fairly high. I don't know exactly what it is.
The amusement tax and the sales tax.
So you pay a tax on it. Now you're going to pay a tax on it. Then you're going to pay a tax on the tax because you're going to pay. Because you're going to pay
second tax.
Another tax on it,
like the
because you're
tax.
Reselling. Well, you paid a tax when you bought it. Now you're going to resell it. You're going to pay a tax on that too, and then there's going to be an ammo tax, and they're going to tax 1 cent to 5 cents per round. So, and this is just another way to close people down. They don't want you to have a weapon, and then they're going to tax all the ammo. And if you buy it outside of Chicago and you bring it into Chicago, you're supposed to tell them that and then pay the extra tax, because you can't avoid taxes by buying it somewhere else. At least legally, you're not supposed to do that. I don't think people realize that if you buy, we always know in a car, if you buy a car outside of Chicago and you live in Chicago, Chicago's going to get their end. They're going to tax you on it. It's supposed to be like that on everything else. If you buy liquor outside of the county, you're supposed to give them the money. that they would have gotten had you bought the liquor here. So taxes are just unbelievable. They're going through the roof, and they keep going up and up and up. And that's what's happening with the IRS, right? The taxes go up because they get penalties and interest. So if you're having problems, give OPM Tax Resolution a call at 312-664-6649.
And now you have the best part of the show. But third best part, at least, it's as the IRS turns, and there are 3 more great parts. You won't want to miss it on the other side.
On AM 560,
The Answer.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host. I am attorney Stephen Leahy. And this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. That was my computer. Okay,
Not mine.
I muted it now. If it was yours, I'd be yelling at you. What are you, crazy? What are you, nuts? What are you, goofy? Turn it off. What are we doing now, Jake?
We are doing As the IRS Turns, I think, right?
And this week's segment of As the IRS Turns, Koskinen,
Wherever we can, we follow the law.
Barry Sotero,
not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
and that ever-favorite Lois Lerner is herself.
Thank you. I'm not good at math.
For another week of As the IRS Turns.
It is another week of As the IRS Turns. And before I go on, I want to talk about, in there we talk about John Koskinen. And I don't know if John Koskinen is now the head of the IRS. And we've talked a lot about him because he's the one that gets in front of Congress and, in my opinion, lies. Okay, we don't know where those emails are. Well, there's no. Oh, they're gone. Nothing we can do. Remember,
it's not an alleged lie. It is a lie.
Allegedly, that's right. And you know, he's the one that said that they couldn't find anything.
Wait. Can I get this straight here? The guy who said this.
Wherever we can, we follow the law.
Is head of the IRS.
That's right. That's the guy. No, I was watching.
It makes sense.
I was watching a show over the last week about the 80s, and then I was watching about the 90s, and they're going through, look what happened in the 90s. Remember in 1999, I was talking to, we at the office, and one of the guys at the office, Mike Norris, and he used to be a programmer, as I used to program, and we were talking about Y2K. And remember, there was a big. They were sure that they were wrong. The government's been wrong about everything. I mean, well, I don't know why we even listen to them anymore. But anyway, they were talking about the Y2K thing on this show, and Bill Clinton had appointed a gentleman in charge of the Y2K problem. And guess who that gentleman was? It was John Koskinen. I was shocked. I'm like, oh, that's
the government had a
task
system
force
in place to combat Y2K.
You know, he said they gave me 2 assistants in an office and told me to make sure the world wasn't destroyed, and he did a great job. We are still here today.
We would like to thank you, Mr. Koskinen, for your work.
Yeah, so
not with the IRS.
I guess he could take
with that. You did save the world. So.
I guess he could take credit, yeah, because the world was not destroyed, and him and his 2 assistants changed the world, saved the world, and so I just thought that was
everything was Y2. Okay.
That is absolutely true, and I'm going to use that myself from now on. So anyway, there's other things going on with the IRS, but I just wanted to point it out because John Koskinen is a longtime political hack. He gets these big jobs in.
He saved the world. How could you call him a hack?
That's true. And now, remember, of course, this whole saga had to do with them going after Republicans because they disagreed with their politics. And, it's come out now that more than 2-1 IRS employees support the Democrats over the Republicans. I think it says they did a study, and from 1990 to now, they donated employees of the IRS donated roughly $453,000 to Democratic candidates and causes, and only $221,000 to Republican candidates. And they got to deduct it from their taxes. And nobody looked. But they also gave a lot of money to their union, and their union, the union that represents all of those employees, gave 95% of all donations to Democratic candidates. So this
my question is, who are those 5% of Republicans? Because they're probably not very good.
That's probably true. And they say Republican candidates or causes, so some sort of cause. I'm sure it wasn't candidates. But what's going on now, and I mentioned this on the show before, is now that the IRS is going to start going after people with their passports. So this is just a new law.
Have you mentioned this before?
I have mentioned it before. And the passports, but what I'm trying to show is if they're trying to target people, they'll target. They won't target their friends. It won't be Democrats who get their passports taken away. It'll be their enemies, and you'll have to go to your congressman. Congressman, can I get my passport back? Can I get back into the country? And they'll say no, unless you give us money. And that's where it's going on with Obamacare. And another thing now is that they've kind of waived some more. IRS again by itself has now waived a bunch of dates that was set in the law, but they just kind of. Remember, they're part of the administration, so they just do whatever they want. And the IRS is notorious for doing whatever they want. And when they target you, you learn they can do whatever they want. And that's why you need somebody between you and the IRS. Don't try to protect yourself from the IRS. Get protection. And that's what Open Tax Resolution does. We protect people. We help people protect them from the IRS.
And nobody does a better job than attorney Stephen Lee. Come won't for the second best segment. You won't want to miss this with our Mr. Know-It-All. Meet us back here on the other side.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer, and I'm your host, Stephen Leahy.
I was going to ask. I thought you forgot about that.
Attorney Stephen Leahy. I wanted to mention something else about John Koskinen because I kind of connected him to Bill Clinton, and he has another connection. They both were impeached, or at least there's a resolution to impeach John Koskinen too, and I'm supporting that resolution. So I think he should be impeached. My own opinion. I thought Bill Clinton should be impeached, and he was, but he wasn't removed. But anyway. What are we doing now, Jake?
Now we have our second favorite segment. Of course, our favorite being the last one that you still have to listen to is the Mr. Know-It-All section where I ask a great question.
Well, let's have Rocky introduce me.
And now, here's that man with a head just crammed full of knowledge, Mr. Know-It-All.
You know, that title may not be very fitting, but with IRS issues, it is fitting, as you do have a law degree, and you have practiced
and a master's.
And a master's, and a undergraduate, and a high school diploma, which I don't have.
You don't have any of those yet. You did graduate 8th grade, did you?
I do. I did, and I did find that diploma for a long time. I could not find my diploma, but I did find it.
I always tell my kids who are way smarter than me. I'm kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You're smart, but they have one thing you don't. I have a degree, and you don't.
You have 4 more than I do.
That's true.
But that doesn't mean that you are still crammed full of knowledge, quote unquote.
I understand.
But so here's my question is, what type of people hire you, and who typically hires you to resolve their tax problems or something similar?
That is a good question. And, I do, there is a common thread that goes through many of my clients, that people that decide to hire me and let me help them with their IRS problem. Generally, they're men, but not always. I have a lot of women clients. And I always have the same thing. Whenever they're sitting with me, they say, I'm a responsible person. I've always taken care of people. Look to me for leadership and guidance and sometimes financial advice. But I have this secret that I don't want anybody to know about. And I'm afraid people are going to find out. I have this tax problem, and this tax problem has been haunting me for years. So most people come to see me. It's not a new problem. It's something that's been getting on them every year. Never goes away. And a lot of times I think CPAs help kind of perpetuate this, because they go to their CPA and their accountant says, you know what, let's file an extension. And we're going to get an extension. So every year they're paying their taxes late. And so the next year comes in, they just used all their money to pay last year's taxes. So now this year they're again late. So again, it perpetuates this problem. And they never seem to face the problem.
It doesn't stop the problem. It just delays the problems and hides the problem.
And it just perpetuates it. And it's ongoing. It's forever. And again, most people, they come to see me, they say, man, I'm just afraid someone's going to find out. Because again, I have people who are financial experts, and they help people in their finances. I have attorneys, and they're supposed to be capable, and I have doctors. I'm smart. I know how to do all this. I'm really good. But there's this one area of my life that's just eating away at me, and I can't tell anybody about it, and I'm afraid people are going to find out.
Now, how could they actually fix that problem?
Well, that's what we do. We do fix the problem, and that's why I always tell people is what I want you to do is take your burden that you've been toting along all these years, and now this is a great time to do it, right? It's the new year. So take a New Year's resolution, sit down and say, I don't want this problem anymore. I want to end this problem. It's killing me. You could tell me about it. I won't tell anybody. We have attorney-client.
By law, he is forbidden.
But again, it's a great time of year to do it, and that's why they have the resolutions, the New Year's resolution. A lot of people make them and don't follow through on them. You should follow through on it. Don't let this IRS thing bother you anymore. And most people come to see me. I have a problem. I can't sleep at night. That's all I ever think about. Every time I try not to think about it, I get another letter from the IRS, or the taxes are due now, and that's what's happening now. Right now, it's the new year. You're going to start getting a lot of tax things. April's going to come up before you know it. April's going to be here, and you're going to have to file your new tax return. So what I'm going to do, and I'm just thinking about this now, what I'm going to do, if you have a tax problem, and you've been putting it off, and you haven't filed taxes, for instance, for a couple of years. Because a lot of times when people owe taxes, what they do is they just don't file them because they don't know. They're afraid if I file, then they'll come after me. Actually, if you don't file, they'll come after you. So don't let that happen. So if you come to me and hire me, I will prepare your 2015 return for free. Okay, so I always tell people, we want to draw a line. We're going to say, from today on, I'm going to be in compliance with the IRS. I'm not going to perpetuate this problem.
Compliance starts with your 2015 tax returns from the old commercial.
That's good, Jake.
I listen.
Yeah, I know you do. But that's true. Compliance starts by going forward and filing your 2015 return on time and making arrangements to pay it. And don't perpetuate this problem. Again, a lot of people who make a very good living, who are responsible, who do all the right things, except for this one area of their life, they're having this problem, IRS problem.
Now, if there's a listener who feels like you're talking about them right now, why should they hire you and not a big box outfit?
Well, that's a good question, too, and we're running out of time, but that's a good question we'll have to think about. We'll have to talk about it next week. But in short, it's because you could sit down, look me in the eye, and decide whether you want to hire me. Don't talk to some salesman from California. Talk to a lawyer here in Chicago. And you can call me at 312-664-6649. Again, the number is 312-664-6649. And I will do your 2015 return for free.
And now's the best segment of the show that you will not want to miss. If you think this has been great so far, this is even better. And so this is
AM 560,
The Answer.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host. I am attorney Stephen Leahy, just like what that guy just said. Okay.
How did he know?
I don't know. He does know.
It's like magic.
And this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. And this is the 2016 first edition. So it's coming
a better year. It's going to be better than ever before.
I hope that's true.
And it's a great start.
I did talk about last year. or last week I talked about how tough this last year was because I lost my brother at the beginning of the year, and so it can't get any worse than that. Okay, so
nowhere but up.
But before we leave here today, I wanted to mention that my son, my co-host, my very good friend, Jake Leahy, has had an article published in
the Times of Israel.
The Times of Israel, and he discusses foreign aid to Israel. It's a really good article. He's 16, so he knows everything. Just ask him.
Obviously. With my
but I gotta say,
degrees minus 4.
It is a very good article, and he takes in this article he takes the position that because he's a friend of Israel and he supports Israel, but they should be standing on their own, and and he makes a very good argument of that.
What's the website where I can read his article?
It's blogs.timesofisrael.com
/road/to/independence.
That's a hard one.
Or you look on Facebook. You look at his Facebook or my Facebook.
Opum Tax, Facebook, Opum Tax, or the IRS Radio Hour, because I have the IRS. So I'm gonna make sure that I put.
Make sure they're shared on.
So you can get it. It's a good article. It is a good article.
And in the article, I talk about how it's in Israel's best interest for us to lessen our aid, foreign aid.
You didn't say too much about military,
but especially our foreign aid overall to Israel, especially in Netanyahu's address to Congress in '96. He called for.
I agree, and I agree with it because it's just like anything else, right? We say the same thing about welfare, and that when you teach a man to, I think you say that in the article.
I do use that. Yes.
My favorite, Mayor Daley, teach a man to fish. Okay, give a man a fish eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. Okay, I thought that was great, and he uses that in the article, and it's true. I mean, if it's true for an individual and it's true for companies, it's also true for nations. You're better off.
That's how our approach to anything should be. When we're giving out money, it should be.
I agree. It should be to help everybody and not let them be dependent on us. Again, whatever it is, individuals, companies, or countries, they should all stand on their own. And I agree 100% with that. Usually we talk about sports, and I did. There are lots of course,
big Notre Dame and Northwestern game 2 days ago. 2 days.
We are before the new year because
I will do my predictions. Always Notre Dame won, Notre Dame lost, Northwestern won, Northwestern lost. We'll go out there, we'll trim those out. I called it right.
That's true.
If there's a tie, I don't know what will happen.
You didn't cover that one. But
there was a tie.
But it is a great sports time for college football. Love college football. I did ask you that. Who's your teams? And you told us last week. Those that you just mentioned, right? Hawks are on fire. Great game last night that I watched. And, of course, we're recording on Wednesday, so that's Tuesday. I watched it Tuesday.
It's an old game now.
It's an old. That's like last week's news. Last week. And I always tell.
We apologize.
Now next week we're going to have Jimmy come back, so Jake will be back in school, I think, and he won't be here. I'm not sure. I won't be there with him, so I won't be sure that he's there. But Jimmy will make his return.
I apologize for all of you. The holiday season can only last so long.
That's right. So, but Happy New Year to everybody. If you're having IRS problems, I talked about it. This is time for a New Year's resolution. Call us at 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com.
We'll be back here this time next week, 5 o'clock on Sunday, on AM 560. The Answer.